here's what's going to happen. All right. So I don't make you memorize a lot of dates for this course because it's not necessary. All right. The main thing is cause and effect and knowing what comes first and second. There are a handful of dates that you must know because they're synonymous with crazy events, like September 11th. September 11th, 2001, with the terrorist attacks, is just a date that we will all know for the rest of American history. All right. July 4th, 1776, is the date that the Declaration of Independence was signed. I know asterisks and quotes that it was done on the 2nd, but whatever. Some dates you just have to know. This is one, and I believe this is really one of the very first ones that you have to know for this course because it's just the thing. October 29th, 1929. All right, it's called Black Tuesday. So it's kind of confusing because Black Tuesday, that's a bad term. But now they call it Black Friday, which is a good term for businesses. So ignore that. Like the day after Thanksgiving is Black Friday and it's a good term. Black Tuesday is not a good term. All right. So October 29th, 1929, the stock market is going to crash. So let me tell you the story that leads up to that. It happened really, really quick. So October 29, 1929 is like the game changer. Leading up to that, so that's on a Tuesday. Black Tuesday is what it's called. Let's go back to the previous Thursday before that. It's October 24th, 1929. For a decade at this point, the stock market has just gone up and up and up and up and up. There's nothing bad has happened. Everybody's making money. So as the stock market goes up and up and up, probably just so happens that Thursday before, a group of guys withdraws money from the stock market. Probably a group of millionaires, right? They just all happen to cash out that day, and the next day they're going to go back and cash it in, all right? So here's how people react to that. So for 10 years, the stock market has steadily just increased. Every single day you make money. On October 24th, 1929, which is a Thursday, all right, let's see if I can... All right, the stock market goes up, 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 and then because all those guys just happened to pull their money out that day, at the end of the day, for the first time in a decade, the stock market had slightly less money than it did the day before, than it started that day. So it goes blip. It's just a little blip, all right? However, just that tiny little blip, which means that the stock market had a little bit less money at the end of the day than it did at the start, is going to start a chain reaction. This is not where like the stock market crashes. No, it's much slower than that. It's like a little snowball that you can like push down a hill and it ends up turning into something huge. So everybody's like, hey, okay, stock market goes up, goes down. Most likely what has happened here is that the stock market will slowly go down a little bit and then it's going to come back up. A lot of people who have just been riding this wave for a long time decide, hey, maybe I want to cash out some stuff now because it looks like the stock market might be slowly going down, which happens all the time. I want to cash out now, and therefore, if I cash out now, I can just get all my money now because if I wait too long, maybe the stock market goes down and my $10 million that I have is only going to be worth $9.8 million. So let me go ahead and cash out now. So that Friday on the 25th, on October 25th, everybody shows up to sell their stocks back, all right, to the owner. All of this is normal. There's nothing nefarious at this point that I have told you. But here's the big thing that's been happening in the background that is completely illegal today, and we manage this like ridiculous. Like people like Billy, who's that poo-poo favorite lollipop company. Billy shut down his factory like 5 years ago. Billy's a liar. Nobody actually ever bought poo-poo favorite lollipops. He just said they were. You know how he was making money? Selling stocks to a company that no longer exists. He tells them it's worth $100,000. People pay $100,000 for a stock. His company's worth $50 billion. All right. And then the next day, he'll be like, it's worth $51 billion. And everybody freaks out and everybody wants to keep buying a stock. He's a big fat liar. That money's gone. All right. He takes people's money and he wastes it on whatever. Everybody thinks they have this big investment. Now he keeps a collection of money over here on the side, like maybe 5% of the money he claims he has. So if people want to come sell back every now and then, he can buy back a few people's stocks and then buy and sell. But he's a big fat liar. All the stocks have been doing this. They've been lying about how good their company is. So what happens is when everybody shows up on Friday to buy stocks back from Billy, Billy gets a little worried. He's like, uh-oh, this isn't good. So, but he does have some money. So anybody that wants to sell their poopy flavored lollipop company stock back to him, he can buy on Friday. But that's all it is on Friday. He's waiting for people to show up and start buying again because he's starting to get nervous. Nobody buys on Friday. So on October 25th, 1929, Friday, the stock market goes back down, keeps going down in a normal trajectory of people selling, which is fine. All right. By the end of the day, he still has some money left over, but he's nervous. So the stock market closes on Friday, and the stock market has gone down again, just like it had on Thursday, because more people are selling. Most of those people are planning on turning around and reinvesting, but end of the day, there's less money. Saturday and Sunday, the stock market is closed. You can't buy or sell or do anything on Saturdays and Sundays. So on Monday, October 28th, it opens back up. He is desperately hoping that there are going to be people here who are going to buy his stock. Otherwise, they're going to find out he's a fraud. All right, whole line of people. So he has enough money all day Monday till he buys back everybody's stock on Monday, and then the end of the day on Monday, October 28th, 1929 ends. He looks down. He's got like $7 left, and he's like, oh, fingers crossed here. Please, tomorrow morning on October 29th, 1929, let people show up and buy stock from me. Otherwise, they're going to find out I'm a big fat liar. Guess what happens on October 29th, 1929? At the start of the day, there's a line of people out his door. They show up and they're like, hey, you're required by law to buy back this stock. And Billy's like, I'm a liar. I can't. There's nothing here. I can't. And when he does this, people lose their minds. I imagine Billy got thrown in a corner and beat to within an inch of his life, most likely, because these people who had invested in his company, their entire life savings, they were convinced they were millionaires. $10 million. But they have just $10 million. It says you're worth $10 million on this piece of paper. If your papers are lies, you have $0, right? And this was across the board. The whole stock market was a bunch of Billies, a whole bunch of liars. So what they ended up having to do, this is where the stock market crashes. They have to turn it off. Like, they realize that it is so bad on October 29th, 1929, it is like a realization that the stock market is all fake. And it just whoosh, like a roller coaster on the first big drop. It just completely drops. There's nothing there's nothing that can be done. So it gets even crazier. So anybody that is there on October 29th, 1929 loses pretty much everything. On a really dark note, to show you how crazy and how serious this is, the highest number of suicides in the history of the United States is going to take place on October 29th, 1929. The amount of people who killed themselves is just staggering. I mean, it wasn't like millions of people, but it was people just jumping out of office buildings. I mean, they lost everything. Their entire life, they thought they were this big wealthy person. They had done all this stuff for their family, and it all ends up just being a sham, and it's gone. It's like poof, gone. All right. So I got a little, anyway, I'll get that in a second. So, all right, what happens is everybody's like shocked that are here at the stock market exchange, and they're really smart people. So they all start looking at each other and they're like, oh my gosh, the stock market just like literally collapsed. It's all gone. And then they all slowly start backing towards the door. All right. And as they back towards the door, they turn around and start sprinting out the door and down the street. And Mr. Wagstaff likes to... All right, so this is what happens in one day. All right, the Great Depression is going to start from this. And I'm going to explain to you how this affects Sally, all right, who works full-time at McDonald's as a shift manager, all right, and she makes $35,000 a year, $40,000 a year. She probably makes more than that working at McDonald's as a manager. How Sally, who's never even heard of the stock market, is going to be fundamentally impacted by this, all right? So you can see it just absolutely plummets down to about the halfway through 1932 is the absolute worst of it. It's not that the stock market kept going down. This is how long it took to realize how many people are liars. It pretty much went a straight shot down. That's what they talk about, the stock market crash. This is shocking that everybody had lied about it, and that was the big downfall. I got a video clip here. Like I said, I have a video clip here.
October 29th, 1929, Black Tuesday. The New York Stock Exchange is in a panic. Frantic investors have scrambled to unload their stocks at any price. Everyone wants to sell. No one wants to buy. Suddenly, even the most gilt-edged securities are practically valueless. The stock market crash has come, and the Great Depression has begun.
So you're like, okay. All right, so this picture right here, before I clarify what's happening with Sally, this is an actual photograph. This is the stock market of these men sprinting out of this building. Do you know where they're going? Think about it. They're going to banks, all right? So they're sprinting down the road to their bank, all right? So remember how I said they would just take your money and throw it over their shoulder into a big pile, all right? So the banks have given away 90% of their money. So they keep about 10% in the bank for people that want to withdraw and stuff like that, all right? Which is fine. People do that every day. However, if like at present day, if you show up and everybody wants to withdraw money now, the bank will be like, okay, they're eventually going to run out of money that day. And they're like, hey, sorry, this happens really rarely. It's called a run on the banks. We just got to get some more money in overnight, and then we'll be able to give you your money tomorrow. Like, you clearly have a right to it, but it's just we don't have any more cash on hand. So that can't happen because your money isn't in a special little box out back. These guys realize that the only money the banks have is the money they currently have in their building at that time. Because when they ask for more money in the middle of the night, are they going to get it? No. The banks don't even realize that the stock market has collapsed yet. Because the stock market has collapsed, everybody's money has disappeared. Poof, gone. So this, I always have somebody in my class like raising their like, oh, what do you mean it went poof, gone? I mean, the money disappeared. It's gone. It doesn't exist. They're like, yeah, buy and sell, and the money's got to go somewhere. If Joe buys from Justin, then Justin now has Joe's old money. Like, the money's got to exist somewhere. It doesn't. And I'm going to explain to you when I'm done with this. If you're curious, I'm going to tell you a little math riddle that'll mess with your brain over how you can manipulate numbers to make them disappear. But the money's gone. It's like poof, it's gone. All right. So these guys are running to the banks to get out the money that's existing in the bank. So by the end of the day, all the money in the banks is gone. Poof, gone. That's it. All right. So here's how it's going to affect Sally. Because me and you, we would be more the Sally type, unless some of y'all might have been the big investors that did not have a good day. Here's how it affects the rest of us. All right. And we'll use Sally as an example. Sally takes her checks and puts it in the bank. All right. Well, Sally, she doesn't know anything about the stock market. She gets off of work one day and she goes to the bank to get some money out. All right. Well, when she rolls up to the bank, she realizes this is like a couple days after this. Her bank is closed. Like, what? That's weird. Like, she has $11,000 in savings. She has a little deposit slip that verified she has $11,000. So she shows up. The bank's closed. It shouldn't be closed, but it's closed. So she goes over to the ATM. The ATM is off. Now, this is back in the 1920s. None of that existed. But for modern day, it would be like, and then her debit card doesn't work. All right. Her bank has closed. So, which means, doesn't mean it closed for the day. It means it just shut down. She's like, I have $11,000 in there. I have a little piece of paper here. It says I have $11,000 in there. Sally ain't got nothing in there because the bank ceased to exist. They invested all her money in the stock market. It's gone. She's like, what the crap? So she's a little worried about this. So she goes back to work. Had to work second shift. She gets back to McDonald's. McDonald's is closed. Her business is closed because guess where McDonald's keeps all their money at that buys more food to be able to sell? That's right. They had put their money in the banks as well. So when the banks collapse, businesses collapse. All right. So McDonald's can't step in. McDonald's closes. Guess what happens to Sally's job? Sally's job's gone. Why can't she go to Taco Bell? Why can't she go to Burger King? Why can't she go to a restaurant right next to it? Because all those businesses had all invested in the banks and the banks had lost all their money. So she's like, this is some bull. So she turns around and she goes home and she sits down in her house and she's like, what am I going to do? She'd been doing everything right. She had savings. She'd been working hard. She never heard of this stock market thing. Well, guess what? As she's sitting on her couch and she's looking at her radio, which is the equivalent of the big flat screen TVs back then, she looks at her refrigerator and she looks at her car. She looks at everything that she has. Does she actually own any of that? No. No, she's been paying that on installments. She now doesn't have a job or any way of paying for it. Guess what's going to happen to Sally? All those companies that she is getting that stuff from is going to come take all of her stuff from her. Sally, who has done nothing but do everything right, all right, her entire life, hard worker, invest or save your money, do everything right, she has lost it all. Within a matter of months, Sally gets kicked out of her own house that she thought she owned. She has nothing to her name. There's no job. There's nothing to do. They pack all her stuff that she actually owns in one suitcase. They push her out of the house, and they board up her house because now it's in foreclosure because she can't afford it. She can't get up. She has no money. And she's like now standing on the front of her sidewalk, and she was like, what in the world? And as she looks down her sidewalk, in either direction, as far as you can see, all she sees is her neighbors standing on their sidewalk with their suitcase because everybody just got royally destroyed by this stock market crash. And there's like, what in the world has just happened? This is going to be the beginning of the Great Depression, and it is absolutely wild. Not only that, how do you fix this? See, in our current situation with the coronavirus, everything's going to struggle here. But as soon as this ends, hopefully, everybody still has money. They can go out and they can go survive, and everything's going to take off, hopefully, and the economy becomes great again, hopefully, when all this takes over. In the Great Depression, it's not like that. They lost everything, and it wasn't like the money got redistributed. The money just disappeared. And I'll explain to you here in a second with a little brain teaser on how you can make that happen, but it's not going to be required, so I don't want to waste your time on it. So the domino effect, there's four things that happen. The first thing is the banks closed. When the banks closed because of people buying on margin, the banks shut down. The second thing is businesses closed. Businesses needed the banks to function. Businesses closed because you can't get loans. All the money you've had saved there is all just gone. This is a group of people standing outside a bank trying to go in and get the money that they've earned that is sitting there in a savings account that they don't have access to. Just ridiculous amounts of pictures in the Great Depression that are just baffling when you really understand the story. Like these men, what are they going to do? You can't go home. Like what? Like your whole life is just ended when you realize that all the money and any value that you have is gone. Not to mention in the 1920s, everybody was paying on installment plan buying so that it doesn't, nobody owns anything. So if they can't make their payments because they don't have a job and they don't have money, they lose their entire life. 1 out of every 4 people were fired, all right, instantaneously. Those who kept their jobs got pay cuts and reduced hours. Let me explain to you what this means by a lot of people. So, well, 75% of the people kept their jobs. All right, say you used to be making $10 an hour working 40 hours a week. So you make $400 a week. If you got to keep your job, you're going down to making $4 an hour working 20 hours a week. So you're making $80 a week. You go from $400 to $80 a week, all right? That's bullcrap. But who's going to quit their job? There are no other jobs. That's enough to literally buy enough bread to survive until the next week. And those people are actually doing a lot better than other people. It's absolutely insane how quickly this whole concept shut down. This is the Great Depression. It's the start of the Great Depression. It's going to last a decade. And it is, you talk about people being in panic mode. Like, what in the world are they going to be able to do? As a time period during the 1930s where the entire world economy collapsed had begun. So you're like, what? What do you mean world? You said we're talking about U.S. history here. All right. So that's another big one. We're going to talk about that here in a second. These are people lined up in order to apply for jobs. There are no jobs. It's an employment agency. We used to be a bar, have been turned over to an employment agency. Nobody's hiring, though. This is a guy who does not have enough money to buy a turkey dinner. And I have a video clip right here. I keep moving myself after I start.
Millions of American workers lost their jobs. 1 out of every 4 workers was jobless. Only a handful of wealthy investors profited from the collapse of the stock market.
All right, so we are going to talk about that. There were some super rich people who had either did not put their money in a bank in which had invested in the stock market, or didn't put their money in banks at all. There were some really, really, really rich people at the time, and in the future days, we're going to mention some of the stuff that they do. Typically, it's easy to hate on rich people, but in the Great Depression, rich people really do step up and do a lot of good stuff for society. So here's what's important to understand. Because of the Ford-Macumber tariff, and then more stuff like the Hawley-Smoot tariff, as we had talked about the other day, the entire world was relying on whose economy? That's right, it was ours. So Germany was borrowing from us so that they could pay back England and France so they could pay us back. When we collapse, Germany collapse, England and France collapse, and the entire world collapses, and everybody's in straight panic. If this happened today, maybe some other country would come help us out. There was no other country to help us out. This is a very telling picture right here. This is a group of people that are standing in line for hours to get enough bread provided by the government just to live till the next day. It's crazy enough to think about the stock market could collapse and make real people starve to death. It's crazier when you realize this picture was taken in Paris. That when our stock market, like an imaginary set of numbers that most people didn't even understand, can collapse, it can literally make people starve to death on the other side of the world. Really kind of goes to show globalization at the time. All right, so that is as far as we're going to get today. You guys can be done if you want to, but I am going to tell you a story randomly of how money can disappear. It's a brain teaser. All right. So you got to follow along with me here on this little story. All right. So there's three guys. All right. So this is the start of the brain teaser. There's three guys going to go on a business trip. All right. They go to a hotel and they realize a hotel room is $30 a night. And they're like, guys, they're going to have 3 different beds in there. Let's just rent one hotel room. Everything will be fine. So like, cool. So the guys stay in a hotel, cost them $30 a night. The next morning, the hotel manager is going to send the bellhop up to get their money. So the bellhop goes on up to the second floor where these guys are staying at, and he knocks on their door and says, hey, you guys owe us $30. 3 guys, like, cool. So since there's 3 guys and it costs $30 for the room, $10 per guy. Make sense? Pretty straightforward. There's nothing sneaky here, promise you. So each guy pays $10. All right, each get $10 out of their wallet, put it together. It's $30 to hand it to the bellhop. Bellhop takes it back down to the manager and says, "Here you go." Manager's like, "Man, thank you." He's like, "But those guys are really good. They ain't causing me no problems. I feel bad for charging them $30. You know what? I'm gonna give them a discount. I'm gonna give them $5 back." So he gives $5 back to the bellhop to go give to the guys. So the bellhop is in the elevator going back to give the guys the $5 back. And he's like, how in the world am I going to divide $5 3 ways? So he takes $2, puts it in his pocket, gets back up to the hotel room, knocks on the door. The opener was like, hey, he's going to give you guys a discount. Here's you guy $1 back. So he gives each guy $1 back. So how much did each guy spend on the hotel room? 10 minus 1 is $9, right? These guys spent $9. 9 times 3 is 27. Plus the $2 in the bellhop's pocket is 29. Where's the last dollar? I'm going to leave you on that one.